Now, Uncomplicated Money continues on News and Talk AM 830 WCRN. Once again, here's your hosts, Jerry Doherty and Brian Rourke.
Welcome back to Uncomplicated Money. Well, we left off the last segment speaking a little bit about heads around the table and how that heads around the table approach can lead us to many different areas that we may not think of initially. And one of the areas that it led Lew Flagg to was a defined benefit plan structure for his small business. So, Lew, were there any other comments that you wanted to finish up on that topic about?
No, other than what I said, that I get to choose where my profit goes at the end of the year, and I'd rather have it stay around to put fuel in the boat.
Absolutely. And where do you have your boat?
Well, it will be on a mooring at the end of my dock in Harpswell, Maine, within the year, where you get to this top of the mountain and you start to look down the other side, and there are a lot of decisions like, where will we live? Well, my decision is what's going to be on the mooring. My wife's the one who's concerned about where will we live. Mm-hmm. So we're building a house and dealing with all of that. But I'm a Maine sailor, and I'd want to get back to where I can smell low tide. It's just something that means a lot to me.
Well, I'm always awestruck by the beauty of the Maine coast. It's absolutely gorgeous.
What people do with their assets, with their money, where they live, what they buy, that is entirely up to them. My concern, and the individuals that I work with, our concern is the control that they have of their assets and the efficiency of those assets. As I know I can say this to you because you sat in the meetings where I was talking about this. Money can be efficient, as in $1 is doing multiple jobs, or it could be wickedly inefficient, where several dollars are all chasing the same job. And I brought up the issue of allowed you to say tax efficiency, because that is money that has not gone out of your estate, has not disappeared off to the IRS forever and ever and ever. You'll be doing things with that money through this extended retirement period that you and Sue are going to enjoy. And that's what the object of this exercise is all about. And I know there are other examples that you have, like Morgan and Hayden Wood.
Right. I was saying during the break that the insurance audits that they do are not a one-time thing. They did that for me. They looked at what I had, just kind of open kimono. But then every year they review it again because things change, my situation changes, what people are offering changes. And so I'll get this notice saying the better deal for you next year is this with your house or this with your car. And paperwork's there, and I sign things, and we're off. And so they're monitoring on an ongoing basis the quality and effectiveness of my coverage. And when we moved to Maine, I asked Morgan, can you handle that if I move to Maine? He said, absolutely, I'll go there with you.
Right, and this cost, this efficiency, this ongoing thing, is that a cost to you, or is it part of the
No, it's
service?
a savings. I'm not paying for any of this. I just get the lower cost every year.
Right. And I think to that point, Lew, it's really true that, life never stands still. Everything is always evolving, which is why it's so important to regularly review those insurance coverages, which you have people who are doing that for you on a regular, ongoing basis. Yeah. Right. So very interesting.
Yeah, I'd like to talk a little bit more about the policy audit, because policies are out there, and there is an inclination to do something, put it in the drawer, put it in the cupboard, leave it. It's a long-term thing, 5, 10, 15, 25 years, whatever, and then we'll go and look at it. That isn't the way that we prefer to do it. These are dynamic things, and these are dynamic times that we live in. They should be looked at. And part of the services that we offer, it's called a policy audit. If you have one or more insurance policies, it costs you nothing to actually have us have a look at them, and we'll get information from the company that actually put them there in the first place, and we can tell you this policy has this value, it has this potential, it has this worth down the road. This is what you can do with it. And that's a happy conversation. We can also, unfortunately, say to people, this policy is not actually worth the money that you're putting into it.
Right. I'm sorry, Brian, go ahead.
Or this policy is going to self-destruct if you don't change what you're doing. And then the money's gone, and you can't get it back. So policy audits are really a question of just touching base with us, and we can take care of it from then.
They really are. I think that it's especially true in the area of life insurance. We can take a life insurance contract and simply look at it, give you a very fair, honest assessment of it, see whether you're paying too much for the coverage that you have or whether we can't get more coverage for the same outlay that you're currently making. You know, there are a lot of life events that people go through. You know, there's marriage, there's divorce, there's buying a house, having children, starting a new business, as we, heard from Lew. Sometimes people even receive unexpected funds, an inheritance, whatever it happens to be. And people become affected by all of these various changes. Lew, earlier today, you were talking about some of the beneficiary designations that you had in some of your life insurance contracts. Why don't you just take a minute and just tell us a little bit about that?
Well, inertia doesn't just apply to physics, it applies to finances. And so people put things in place and forget them. I now get the bills from my parents because they're in assisted living, and I see these policies and they say, this is just inappropriate for where they are now. But people just leave these things in place. In my case, both with my estate plan and with coverage, geez, don't tell my kids they're no longer beneficiaries of, because they are, but some other people are too. And so the discipline of review, I'm busy running a business. I do not have time to review insurance policies. They sit in a file in a box in the basement.
Yeah, and
it's the people who are heads around the table who are doing the checking for me and keeping me up to date.
And it's somewhat of a technical thing. Brian and I don't literally do it ourselves. We send it off to people who actually take a look at these policies. And we'll find very often that somebody bought a life insurance policy, as Brian was indicating, 25 or 30 years ago. And what we'll find is that policy is based off 1970, 1980 census information. And what that will show is that Americans at that point in time were living fewer years than they're living today, when you have something based off 2001 census information. So therefore, if they're living fewer years, it means the insurance company, relative to the mortality charges, the morbidity charges that are coming out of those policies, they'd have to charge more. So we'd have to take a look at everything on a global basis with these, but that's just one little detailed thing that the average person wouldn't know anything about.
Yeah. Your assets and your asset management are not static entities. They're dynamic, and given the current economic climate and what we have to work with in this economy, they're more than dynamic. The right decisions at the right time in the right place will give you a good result. Neglect, fear, uncertainty, doubt, ignorance, ignoring will not give you a good result. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, the majority of people tend to be mañana. Is that an American word? Mañana. Right? Leave it. And I spend more of my time fixing things that would have been easier 10 years ago than they are today. Right.
And we can do a policy audit review if you simply contact us. It's very, very simple. It's a relatively straightforward process. It takes us, 2-3 days at the most to email something back to you. We can be reached at 877-772-1776, and we'd be very happy to perform that policy audit and review for you. And I really guess the question that some people should ask themselves when it comes to their life insurance coverage is that in its current form, does the life insurance still make sense? Well, there's only one simple way to find that out. Just simply contact us, and we'll be very happy to give you a fair, honest assessment on that. Okay? So, Lew, your other insurances, you went through your property and casualty insurance through one of our heads around the table, Morgan Duffy. And then I suppose you also had other wills, trusts, and so on audited by Alan. You found that process pretty beneficial? You found some things that were a little bit outdated and incorrect?
Well, yes, that was the case where my 35 and 33-year-old children were still being provided for in loco parentis care should my wife and I die at the same time. And I thought, well, I think their spouses can probably take care of them now, so I don't have to worry about that. And then there was a whole process of end-of-life planning. What do you want done? We're going through this now. Obviously, my parents are 90. They're facing some serious health issues. And so the family has to get together and discuss what should we do. My wife and I have laid it all out in a very thorough process, so my kids do not have to say, what would Daddy want? Daddy has it all written down, and they all have copies of it. And with confidence, they can say, do not spend Daddy's financial reserves keeping him out of heaven. When he is ready, and we have it in writing that he's ready.
Yeah, very, very subjective. I happen to agree with you. Very, very subjective, but I think I feel exactly that same way. In addition to all the policy audit and review, Brian and Lou, it's also just meeting with Brian on a regular basis to just review the overall plan in a more global way. I think that that's almost a plan audit and review. And as Brian was saying, these are not static instruments. They aren't. These are instruments that are living and breathing. So we try to review these things often and adjust to make changes as time goes on. This is Uncomplicated Money, and I want to thank our guest, Lew Flagg, for joining us today. Lew, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Okay. I'm Jerry Doherty, and I'm here with my co-host, Brian Rourke. We will see you next Sunday from 11 to noontime here on Uncomplicated Money, rebroadcast on Saturdays 1 to 2 here on WCRN.
Baby.